Keanu Reeves, one of Hollywood's most beloved actors, walked into an upscale car dealership in downtown Chicago on an ordinary day. For him, it was just another step in his search for something meaningful. But what was about to unfold would not only challenge the ideals of those around him, but would also leave an unforgettable mark on how respect and humility can transform even the most hostile situations. That morning, the crisp Chicago air carried with it the hum of life, a city waking up, rushing through its daily routines. Keanu, dressed in a simple black leather jacket and worn jeans, strolled down the crowded streets. His calm demeanor stood out amidst the hurried energy of the city, and though a few people recognized him, he carried himself with the same humility he was known for. He smiled at a passerby who waved excitedly, nodded politely at a compliment, and kept walking, unbothered by the occasional whispers of, "Is that Keanu Reeves?" For him, fame was never a pedestal. It was a platform to stay grounded and true to himself. Halfway through his walk, Keanu made his usual stop at a cozy neighborhood cafe. "Morning, Lucas," he greeted the barista warmly. "Morning, Keanu. The usual?" Lucas replied with a smile. "You know it," Keanu said, leaning against the counter. As Lucas prepared his order, Keanu's mind wandered. For months, he had been searching for a car. Not just any car, but something rare, something with a story. He envisioned restoring a vintage model, transforming it into something extraordinary, and using it for a cause greater than himself. Perhaps to raise money for charity, or as a tribute to a meaningful legacy. With coffee in hand, Keanu left the cafe and continued walking. His destination was a luxury car dealership, known for its rare and exclusive inventory. He had researched this place, and it seemed like the perfect spot to find what he was looking for. When he arrived, the difference between the quiet streets outside and the opulence inside was stark. The dealership was designed to exude exclusivity, marble floors polished to a mirror-like shine. Rows of high-end vehicles displayed under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, and the faint scent of leather and car polish lingering in the air. Employees dressed in tailored suits and designer accessories moved about, attending to clients whose expensive attire and commanding presence spoke volumes about their wealth and status. Keanu stepped inside, his unassuming appearance going largely unnoticed at first. Dressed in his modest outfit, he blended in as a passerby rather than a potential buyer. But as he moved deeper into the showroom, the murmurs began. "Does he even know where he is?" one salesman whispered to another. "He looks like he walked in off the street," another chuckled. Keanu ignored the comments. His focus was on a car that had caught his eye, a beautifully restored classic vehicle tucked away at the back of the room. Its sleek lines and timeless design seemed to call out to him. Approaching a young salesman scrolling on his phone, Keanu asked politely, "Excuse me, could you tell me more about this model?" The salesman barely glanced up. One sec," he muttered, walking off without another word, leaving Keanu standing alone. Keanu turned back to the car, studying its details. Despite the growing whispers around him, he remained calm. Does he really think he can afford something like that? Looks like a waste of time. Keanu heard the remarks, but chose to ignore them. His focus was unwavering as he admired the craftsmanship of the car. Moments later, the manager, Jonathan, entered the scene. Dressed in a sharp three-piece suit and exuding an air of authority, Jonathan's expression shifted the moment he laid eyes on Keanu. Jonathan approached with a smile that was more condescending than welcoming. "This model is one of our rarest," he said, his tone sharp and deliberate. "That's why I'm interested," Keanu replied evenly. Jonathan's gaze swept over Keanu, lingering on his scuffed boots and casual jacket. "Well," he said, crossing his arms, "this isn't just any car. It's for a certain kind of client." Keanu's polite smile tightened slightly, but he remained composed. "I'd like to learn more about it," he said firmly. Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "Do you?" he said, his tone dripping with doubt. "This car costs more than most houses in the city. We usually deal with serious buyers." The room grew quiet as employees and a few clients turned to watch the unfolding exchange. Keanu met Jonathan's gaze without flinching. "I understand the price," Keanu said calmly. Jonathan smirked. Do you? Because buyers here typically fit a specific profile. Successful, sophisticated, wealthy. He gestured dismissively toward Keanu's attire. The tension in the room thickened. Keanu tilted his head slightly, his patience beginning to wear thin. Profile? He repeated. Jonathan chuckled. Yes, profile. Our cars aren't just vehicles, they're status symbols. And no offense, but you don't exactly look like our usual clientele. Keanu's calm demeanor shifted slightly, his expression hardening. He took a slow breath, carefully choosing his words. Curious, he said, how you seem to judge people so quickly based on what they wear. That says more about you than it does about me. Jonathan's face flushed, but his smirk remained. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. Look, people like you come in all the time. You dream, you browse, and then you leave. If you're not here to buy, don't waste my time. Keanu's eyes narrowed slightly, his calm composure now tinged with quiet indignation. What if I'm not here to dream? He asked softly. Jonathan's smirk widened into a grin. Then I'd say you're in the wrong place. Jonathan's words hung in the air, the condescension palpable. The murmurs in the room grew louder as employees and clients leaned in to watch. Keanu stood his ground, his posture calm but resolute. What makes you so certain that I'm in the wrong place? Keanu asked, his voice steady and deliberate. Jonathan crossed his arms, a smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. Because this dealership caters to people who can afford to be here. People who fit the image of success. And no offense, he said, gesturing at Keanu's modest attire, but you don't exactly scream success. Keanu tilted his head slightly, his expression thoughtful rather than defensive. Funny, he said after a pause. I've always thought success was about how you treat others, not how much you spent. The smirk on Jonathan's face faltered for a split second, replaced by a flicker of irritation. He stepped closer, invading Keanu's personal space. Listen, Jonathan said, his voice dropping to a sharp whisper. I see people like you all the time. You walk in, dream a little, and then leave without spending a dime. If you're here to waste my time, I suggest you turn around and walk out. The tension in the room was suffocating. Keanu stood perfectly still, his calm demeanor now tinged with an edge of quiet strength. His eyes met Jonathan's without flinching, and the intensity of his gaze seemed to unnerve the manager. And what if I'm not here to waste time? Keanu asked softly. Jonathan laughed, the sound dry and dismissive. And I'd say you're still in the wrong place. This showroom is for people who can afford what we sell, for people who have something to prove. And honestly, he said, leaning closer, you don't look like you have eyes. Keanu's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. Maybe I don't need to prove anything to anyone, he said. Jonathan's face flushed with frustration. The smirk that had dominated his expression gave way to a scowl, and his voice rose slightly. You think you can just walk in here and demand respect? You don't even know who you're dealing with. Keanu's gaze didn't waver. Respect doesn't have to be demanded, he said quietly. It's something that should be given freely, no matter who you're dealing with. Jonathan's frustration boiled over. He took a step forward, his hand clenching into a fist. Whether it was an attempt to intimidate Keanu or something more, it didn't matter. In a single fluid motion, Keanu raised his hand and intercepted Jonathan's fists midair. The movement was swift and controlled, a gesture of restraint rather than aggression. The entire showroom froze. Jonathan stood motionless, stunned that his rash action had been so easily stopped. Employees and customers stared, their eyes wide with disbelief. Keanu released Jonathan's hand gently, his grip firm but calm. He stepped back, giving the manager space, and spoke in a tone that was steady yet powerful. The anger you're feeling, Keanu said softly, has nothing to do with me. Maybe it's time you figure out where it's really coming from before you take it out on others. Jonathan's face turned red, his expression a mixture of embarrassment and barely concealed rage. Keanu adjusted his jacket, his calm demeanor unshaken. Respect doesn't cost a thing, Keanu said, his voice carrying through the silent room. But for some people, it seems harder to find than the rarest car in this showroom. Without waiting for a response, Keanu turned and began walking toward the exit. The sound of his footsteps echoed in the otherwise silent space, each step a reminder of the moment that had just unfolded. As Keanu reached the glass doors of the dealership, something caught his attention. A young man standing in a corner of the room was holding up his phone, his face a mixture of nervousness and determination. He had been recording the entire interaction, from the dismissive treatment by the salesman to the tense confrontation with Jonathan. The young man met Keanu's gaze and gave him a small nod, a silent gesture of solidarity. Keanu responded with a faint smile, almost imperceptible, before stepping out into the crisp Chicago air. Inside the dealership, the silence was deafening. Jonathan stood rooted to the spot, his face pale and his fists clenched at his sides. Around him, employees exchanged uneasy glances, while a few customers whispered among themselves. The tension in the room was palpable, but one thing was clear. Something had shifted. The young man, Daniel, uploaded the video to social media later that day. His caption was simple but powerful. What happens when humility meets arrogance? Watch how Keanu Reeves turns a moment of disrespect into a lesson. The video exploded overnight. Within hours, it had been shared tens of thousands of times. By the next morning, it had gone viral with millions of views and countless comments expressing outrage at Jonathan's behavior and admiration for Keanu's grace. One moment in particular captured the world's attention: Keanu's line, "Respect doesn't cost a thing, but for some people, it seems harder to find than the rarest car in this showroom." The video of the incident continued to spread like wildfire. Social media platforms were flooded with comments expressing shock, anger, and admiration. The stark contrast between Jonathan's condescending arrogance and Keanu's composed humility resonated deeply with viewers across the globe. How could anyone treat Keanu Reeves like this? He's literally one of the kindest, most humble people in Hollywood. That manager represents everything wrong with elitism and prejudice. Keanu's line about respect is something I'll remember forever. What a legend. The hashtag #RespectIsLuxury began trending on Twitter, accompanied by posts and memes celebrating Keanu's grace under pressure. The phrase, "Respect doesn't cost a thing," became a rallying cry for discussions about prejudice, customer service, and the toxic elitism that often pervades luxury spaces. Meanwhile, the dealership found itself in the eye of a public relations storm. Negative reviews flooded their social media pages and business listings. Thousands of comments demanded an explanation, an apology, and the immediate dismissal of Jonathan. "No one should support a place that treats people like this," one comment read. "Luxury isn't about money, it's about experience, and this dealership clearly doesn't understand that," wrote another. Employees began speaking anonymously to the press, sharing their experiences with Jonathan. "This isn't the first time he's treated someone this way," one staff member revealed. "He's always looked down on people who don't fit his idea of what a client should look like." The dealership's sales plummeted as longtime clients distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. Even luxury brands that supplied the dealership began to question their partnerships, wary of the reputational damage. Jonathan attempted to issue a public apology, stating, "The situation was a misunderstanding. I didn't immediately recognize Mr. Reeves, and my behavior has been misinterpreted." The public wasn't buying it. The apology was widely criticized as insincere and dismissive, further fueling the backlash. Amid the uproar, Keanu maintained his characteristic silence. He declined interviews and avoided making public statements, choosing instead to focus on what truly mattered to him. In a conversation with a close friend, Keanu shared his thoughts. "This isn't about me. What happened at that dealership is something that happens to people every day. They're judged by how they look, where they come from, or how much money people think they have. I want to make sure this moment leads to something meaningful." "Solo Probes, what's next?" his friend asked. Keanu smiled faintly. "I've got an idea." A week after the incident, Keanu returned to the dealership. This time, his visit was unexpected, unannounced, and devoid of fanfare. He walked through the glass doors quietly, just as he had the first time. Inside, the atmosphere was markedly different. The once bustling showroom was eerily quiet, a direct reflection of the boycott that had taken hold. Employees froze when they saw him, their expressions a mix of surprise, shame, and apprehension. Jonathan, now visibly shaken by the fallout, stood behind the counter. His confident posture had been replaced by nervous hesitance, and his face betrayed the weight of the past week's events. Keanu approached the car he had admired during his last visit, running his fingers along its smooth surface. The tension in the room was almost tangible, every employee watching the scene unfold in hushed silence. Jonathan finally mustered the courage to approach him. "Mr. Reeves," he began, his voice low and hesitant. I I want to apologize again for my behavior last time. It was completely unprofessional. I hope we can put this behind us." Keanu turned to face him, his expression unreadable. "You want to put this behind us?" he repeated, his tone calm but piercing. Jonathan nodded quickly. "Yes, of course. I'd be happy to show you the car you were interested in." Keanu held his gaze, his silence drawing out the moment. Finally, he spoke. "The problem isn't just how you treated me," he said evenly. "It's how you treat people. Anyone who walks through those doors deserves respect, whether they're wearing a suit or a jacket like mine." Jonathan opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. "Respect shouldn't be conditional," Keanu continued. "It's not something you reserve for people who you think are worthy. It's something you give freely without judgment." Stepping back from the car, Keanu delivered his final words. "That's why I won't be buying this car. Not from this dealer." Jonathan's face fell, the weight of the words hitting him harder than any public backlash. Keanu turned and walked toward the exit. At the door, he paused and looked back one last time. "I hope this serves as a lesson, not just for you, but for everyone here. True luxury isn't about price tags or exclusivity. True luxury is dignity." With that, Keanu walked out, leaving behind a heavy silence. After the incident, Keanu found the car he had been searching for at a smaller, family-owned dealership in a neighboring town. The owner, a man named Sam, greeted him with warmth and sincerity. "Well, how can I help you today?" Sam asked with a smile. "I'm looking for something special," Keanu replied. "A car that represents more than just a purchase, a symbol of respect and purpose." Sam and his team treated Keanu with kindness and respect without any pretense or judgment. After purchasing the car, Keanu posed for a photo with Sam and his staff, later posting it on social media with a simple caption. "True luxury is being treated with respect. Thank you, Sam, for reminding me of that." The post went viral, sparking a global movement. People shared their own stories of prejudice and resilience, using hashtags like "respect is luxury" and "learn from Keanu." Businesses across industries began reevaluating their customer service practices, and many pledged to foster inclusivity and respect in their operations. The car Keanu purchased was no ordinary vehicle. It became a powerful symbol of change and a testament to the values he stood for. After buying the car, Keanu had it meticulously restored by a team of skilled artisans, ensuring every detail reflected its timeless beauty. But this wasn't just about restoring a car. It was about giving it a purpose. Keanu decided to auction the car at a high-profile charity event, with all proceeds going toward organizations promoting equality, inclusion, and respect. News of the auction quickly spread, drawing attention from celebrities, philanthropists, and automotive enthusiasts alike. The event was held at an elegant but understated venue, reflecting Keanu's preference for simplicity and meaning over extravagance. Guests arrived, eager to witness not just the auction, but the message behind it. As the evening progressed, Keanu took to the stage to address the audience. Standing in front of the beautifully restored car, he spoke with the quiet conviction that had come to define him. "This car was just a machine," he began. "A collection of metal, leather, and glass. But after what happened, it became something more. A reminder of how we treat one another and the change we can inspire when we choose kindness and respect over judgment." The room was silent as he continued. "What happened to me at that dealership wasn't unique. Every day, people are judged by their appearance, their clothes, their background, or their perceived status. Too often, we forget that the most valuable things in life aren't material, they're how we treat others." He gestured toward the car. "This car is now a symbol of something greater. By auctioning it, I hope we can turn a moment of negativity into something positive, something that inspires change and helps create a world where respect is a given, not a privilege." The audience erupted into applause, their admiration for Keanu evident not just as an actor but as a man of principle. The bidding war for the car was intense, with offers climbing higher and higher. The symbolism attached to the car, combined with Keanu's involvement, made it a one-of-a-quick piece. By the end of the night, the car sold for an astounding $4.3 million, far exceeding expectations. All proceeds went to charitable organizations focusing on combating discrimination, promoting diversity, and fostering education about the importance of respect and inclusion. The auction and Keanu's speech sparked a global movement. People began sharing personal stories of prejudice and resilience on social media, using hashtags like respect is luxury and learn from Keanu. These stories highlighted the small but impactful ways people could combat bias and treat others with dignity in their everyday lives. Businesses across industries took notice. Luxury brands in particular began reevaluating their customer service practices, introducing initiatives to foster inclusivity and ensure that respect was at the heart of their operations. Even the original dealership where the incident occurred wasn't spared. Under immense pressure from public backlash, the company dismissed Jonathan and announced a complete restructuring of its leadership team. In a statement, the dealership pledged to prioritize respect and inclusivity, hoping to repair its tarnished reputation. The impact of Keanu's actions extended far beyond the incident itself. The car became a symbol of hope, and its story was shared in classrooms, corporate training sessions, and social campaigns around the world. Months after the auction, Keanu was asked in an interview what he had learned from the experience. He smiled thoughtfully before replying, "I've learned that even the smallest moments can have the biggest impact. Respect doesn't cost anything, but when we give it freely, it has the power to transform lives. It's not about who you are, how much money you have, or what you wear. It's about recognizing the humanity in each other and acting accordingly." The car's story didn't end at the auction. The new owner, a philanthropist inspired by Keanu's message, continued to use the vehicle to raise awareness. It was displayed at events and exhibitions worldwide, accompanied by a plaque that read, "This car is a reminder that true luxury isn't found in wealth or exclusivity. It's found in dignity, respect, and how we treat one another." The story of Keanu's encounter at the dealership became a cultural touchstone, a lesson in humility and the power of standing firm in the face of arrogance. And as the world moved on, one truth endured: respect doesn't cost a thing, but its value is immeasurable.